Rev up your engines!
Well, it looks like the car shortage might get a whole lot worse. Not because of chips, because of magnesium. There's now a global shortage of magnesium. You might think, what does that have to do with anything? Well, magnesium is used in many aluminum alloys. Cars have a lot of aluminum, right? It's not pure aluminum. You ever see pure aluminum? Bends so easy. Look at aluminum foil. You know, aluminum's soft. It's got to have alloys in it to make it hold up. Body panels, fuel tanks, suspension plates, brackets, brakes, engine blocks, cross members, axles, unibody structures, even the wheels. Without magnesium, you can't make that aluminum alloy. As an analyst for Barclays says, if magnesium supply stops, the entire auto industry will potentially have to stop building cars. Now here's the problem. 85% of the magnesium that the world uses these days comes from China. And they had an energy crisis in China, so they shut down a bunch of factories. Yulin is the most magnesium producing town in China, and they recently shut down 35 of their 50 factories. And the 15 remaining scaled their stuff down. Over 50%. And here's the problem with magnesium. You can't store it long because it's a very combustible element. You know, people, those magnesium sticks, you can start fires with them, right? It oxidizes real fast, so you can't mine it and store it. You got to use it. Kind of like eggs and milk. At least here in the United States, we're a relatively large producer of magnesium too, so we can produce quite a bit of it here in the United States. So now you know, it's not all going to be chips, it's magnesium too. You got to have magnesium to make aluminum that you use in cars. Because it's not pure aluminum, that's too soft. Just like 18 karat gold. Gold can't be pure gold, because if it's pure gold, you put it on a ring, it would bend all the time. It's got to be an alloy. And it's the same thing with aluminum. If there's not any magnesium, so much for producing cars. Corey99 says, my horn randomly is going off in my vehicle. I got a GMC Sierra 2020. It honks randomly when I'm turning left. All right. Shows you the lack of quality in GM. That's almost a brand new truck, right? And it's honking. Take it back to them under warranty. Tell them you want the clock spring mechanism replaced. There's a part inside the steering wheel called the clock spring mechanism. When they break, when you're turning, the stupid horn will start blaring away, because that's what's part of the system that lets you beep the horn. You're twirling the wheel, right? So the horn's got to be on this clock spring mechanism that spins around. If it was on a wire, when you turned the wheel away, the wire would break. So have them replace the clock spring mechanism. That's 99% of the time what's wrong. It should be under warranty, and that's what's doing it, because as you turn it, the clock spring thing is shorting out and making it honk. Have them fix it free, but it just shows the lack of quality of GM. You got a vehicle that's, a year old and the horn doesn't even work right anymore. They got a real quality issue at GM. There's no arguing that. Dominic Toretto says, I want opinion for a first car. Should I get a Toyota Avensis 2003 diesel wagon or a Honda Civic 2.2 diesel that's been sitting in a garage for a year? Both are manual transmissions. One, I'd go for the Toyota for two reasons. One, the Toyotas are real dependable. You're not in the United States because they don't sell the diesels here, but I got friends in England that have them and they love them. The other reason is the Honda's been sitting for a year. Why has it been sitting for a year? You don't want to buy a car that's been sitting for a year. It's probably there for a good reason. Something's wrong with it. Don't buy cars that have been sitting. They sit, they rot. It's a diesel. The diesel fuel could get contaminated with water vapor and mold can grow in it. Don't buy a car that's been sitting for a year. If you got another one that's a nice car that's been driven, you want cars that are driven. You can buy estate cars that haven't been driven much and get a real cheap deal on it, but if you see there's cars out there for about the same price, and one's been sitting for a year and the other's been a daily driver, buy the daily driver. You want to get it checked out. They're old cars, you're talking about 03, so, a 19-year-old car, but they're well made. Have a mechanic check it out. If it's okay, definitely buy the Toyota. Honda makes good cars, but you don't want to buy a car that's been sitting for a year. There might be a bad reason. Night 12345 says, I got an '05 Honda Accord. My SRS seat light restraining light is coming on intermittently when I'm driving. And if I take off my seatbelt, instead of the seatbelt light coming on, the SRS light comes on. All right. The problem with airbag systems is they're very complex. You need a very fancy computer to analyze them. Have any mechanic hook up their good scan tool and see what your code is. Since you say you take your seatbelt off, the seatbelt light doesn't come on, but the SRS light. It very well could be a very common problem with the Hondas. The sensor on the seatbelt goes bad, and it'll do that. The seatbelt has a sensor for your airbag system for one main reason. If you don't have your seatbelt on, the airbag's going to have to deploy much faster and harder to stop all that weight. But if you have your seatbelt buckled in, it doesn't have to explode as hard because you're being restrained partly by the seatbelt, right? Well, when those seatbelts, you use them all the time, click, 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 then the switch inside breaks. Then it will make that light come on off. Now, it could be a lot of things theoretically to put that light on, but from my experience, you're probably going to need a new seatbelt latch because the switch is built into that. Any mechanic can put a machine on and check it, but that's my experience what wears out. We'll do exactly that. Switching the seatbelt, and you got to buy a new seatbelt assembly to fix. IBD05 says, this is my engine shot. I got an '01 Subaru Outback, 186,000 miles, had piston slip and cold starts. After I revved it to redline one time, the engine knocks loudly at idle but goes away when I go over 1.5. Oil is showing up 1 quart overfilled. I haven't changed the oil in over a month. Checked a few weeks ago, it was half a quart low. Did I spin a bearing? Idle smooth, but sounds like a diesel engine. Yeah, it sounds like a diesel engine. Forget it. It's worn out. It's going to need rebuilding. It only knocks now until you rev it up, and eventually it's going to just throw a rod, because when those bearings get worn, eventually they break loose. The piston rod will hit the side of the engine, knock a hole in it, goodbye car. Now, you say that your oil's showing as 1 quart overfilled. All right, watch your coolant level. If you're losing coolant, the head gasket's also blown, because then water goes into the engine oil, and the engine oil level will go up. It'll actually be overfilled. If you did not overfill it with too much oil, that's the problem. The engine's going out. You're just going to have to either put another engine or get another car. Don't drive it much, because when it does go, it's going to be goodbye. And at least if it runs now, you might be able to sell it for something. If the engine locks up and doesn't run at all, you'll get nothing for the vehicle. Now, here's a great tip. One of the viewers couldn't get his oil filter off. So what did he do? He wrapped the oil filter with duct tape. He tried to get it off, and it just kept slipping and slipping and slipping. He cleaned it off. He wrapped it with duct tape, which gets real strong grip, right? Then he put the wrench on it. When he grabbed it, it didn't slip anymore. A brilliant idea. I've never actually done that myself. Of course, I got all kinds of crazy tools that can grab and crinch, and big removals that look like alligator jaws that grab it, and then you pull on it. Big extension lines to pull. You get more torque on the thing. But that is a very good idea, because they will often slip and not go. If you wrap it with duct tape that grabs it real good, then you can get it off and throw it away. Thanks to N-Lord for this fantastic tip. If you can't get your oil filter off, hey, wrap it with duct tape first. Then when you put the wrench on it, it will not slip. Good idea. Thanks for the tip. A lot of hassle getting an oil filter off. I mean, now if that doesn't work and you still can't get it off, then you do what a lot of guys do. You get a giant screwdriver, you hit it with a hammer, you knock a hole in the thing, and then you can certainly twist it, because there's a big hole in it, and the giant screwdriver will turn the hole that it goes through. That's the last ditch effort if you can't get it off any other way. That's a good question. Will more frequent oil changes cause damage to my car? I sit in city traffic a lot for 30 minutes. So I'm thinking about changing my oil every 4,600 miles instead of every 10,000 miles. Is that going to hurt anything? No, that's a very good idea. See, here's the thing. When you're idling, that's the worst thing for your engine. That's why when people have commercial vehicles, hour timers say how many hours it was run, because they don't care about how many miles. It's how many hours that engine was sitting there idling. Yes, definitely. Change it more often. Change it more often isn't going to hurt anything except your pocketbook. It costs money to do. It won't hurt anything. The cleaner your oil is. If you changed every 100 miles, your engine would probably never wear out. It would cost you a fortune. No, that's a very good idea, because sitting idling, a lot of wear in your car. You should always change your oil more if you're going to be sitting idling, because that's one of the worst wears, sitting there idling, getting hot. Your transmission oil you should change more often, because if it's sitting there spinning, just not running anywhere, the transmission has a tendency of getting a little bit hotter. So yes, if you're going to idle a bunch, you want to change the fluids more often. And no, it doesn't hurt anything. It's a good idea. You came up with a good one there. Well, there's a California high school now that's teaching teens to drive 18-wheelers. Well, let's just say maybe not such a smart idea. I know how teens drive. Both of my sons, the first cars they had, they totaled them. Do you want them totaling 18-wheelers too? This is California, Patterson High School. It's an elective course. You don't have to take it. But there's so few truck drivers, now they're trying to train people at 18 to drive them. Now, after they complete this year-long class, granted, they're not getting a license for driving the trucks now. They then have to apply to a partner trucking firm for real-world training before they get their commercial driver's license. They're not giving them the licenses in high school. And they're not stupid either. They're not giving them big rigs to drive around. They're giving them 20 hours on a simulator, not on an actual 18-wheeler. Now, that's a smart move there. So they're teaching high schoolers how to drive 18-wheelers now in simulators in California. Hey, maybe that'll help relieve this loss of truck drivers that things aren't being delivered on time. Now, a lot of these kids say, hey, I'm not going to do it all the time. I'm not going to be a professional truck driver, but they'll do stuff like to have summer jobs so they're making money, and then they go to college in the winter. Eduardo Solero in California, who's a senior, he said, hey, I'm going to do it to make money while I'm going to college so I can help pay for stuff. So, hey, not a bad idea, really, if you think about it. But I don't want to see 18-year-olds driving the 18-wheelers. Those two 18s, I don't think they really go together. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.